his green eyes wet with grief at the city's fall, receded from view into the masonry's hidden opening. The pale rider on a white horse, like a solar eclipse, showed the pallor of his being to the dead and dying. Serene in his lunar-like ellipse, he migrated the earthly dominion of the last of the Caesars, whose pagan emblem of 2,000 years seemed to have melted away in an Icarian display of stupidity and hubris, the two-headed eagle. In a slowly shrinking gyre, horse and rider moved on, as he imagined the very stones beneath him in wave-like undulations of the sea, pulled loose by his very presence. In a world that, to many, would seem to be upside down and a precursor to the apocalypse itself, he was drawn by the ripples of the silent surge of history and the gravity of a destiny that pulled him to the center of Greek and Roman spirituality. This city, that church, is where it had all begun, where it had been sequestered for ages. Here, in this city, that church, is where he would end it. The relics would at last be found and destroyed. In a synchronous movement of earthly ambition and celestial indifference, he advanced to the omphalos of the Byzantine world to which he felt himself tethered from birth. On this day, he would cut the cord so that he might live out his ambition as the man-child of a new civilization. Mehmet II advanced as the city convulsed. The multitudes, like the shattered remains of a great icon, lay about in a frenzy of vibrating color and grating cacophony that could neither see nor hear in their fellow Greeks the pieces to the harmony that had once ruled over them. The remaining poor, desperate, and isolated soldiers of Byzantium, unable or unwilling to flee the city, could only cringe as they felt themselves breaking. Mehmet II rode ahead with a green mantle worn about his shoulders, like that of the prophet, and trailing behind him over his saddle and resting on his horse's haunches. Now and again it lifted slightly, as his mount strained at the tension and smells of battle still lingering in the air. Its nostrils flared at the smell of several nearby burning houses and that of human refuse still scattered about the streets, bleeding, disemboweled, limbless, or just fearfully drenched in urine, sweat, and excrement. Some of the living smelled worse than the dead. Only the rats seemed unconcerned and inured to the suffering around them. Mehmet II, regal, resplendent, and of a harsh visage, glowered as he rode ever more slowly, his horse now and again stutter-stepping at the scream of yet another woman and child separated by their new lords. He turned at last to gaze upon the grandest structure in all of Constantinople. It was not the Hippodrome, the great raceway for charioteers, nor the emperor's palace, but the greatest structure in all of Christendom. In a spontaneous surge of triumph, dozens, then hundreds, and finally thousands of soldiers, Turks, Syrians, and other fruits of Islam's manhood began to shout, "Istin Poli! Istin Poli! Istin Poli!" Mehmet II drew closer to the troops concentrated around the greatest architectural achievement of 1,000 years, the Magna Ecclesia, the great church, called Hagia Sophia by later generations. Steadily, strongly, they engaged in an antiphonal voicing that rang like a mocking humiliation of Greeks of all classes and professions. Even the Genoese merchants and their soldiers and Venetian seamen sought refuge in the basilica that was intended as a monument to God's wisdom and the maternal affection of his earthly and heavenly mother. Inside were the relics of untold value and a vial, it was said, of the Virgin's milk itself. Sacred objects venerated by thousands upon thousands over the centuries. Relics which would now fall into the hands of those who might not fear to defile what they could not or would not appreciate or believe. Objects so venerated and so powerful that conquerors sought their possession as validation of their divine right to rule over humanity. In another surge of elation, soldiers alternately shouted Istin Poli in the city and Caesari Rum, Caesar of Rome. The antiphonal chorus sounded a reverberating presence and seismically shifted the earth and echoed in a mocking liturgy that seared into the souls of those